I also welcome Niki Passath, also one of our past Schaumbad artist members. I'm very glad to have you here for this dialogue today. For those who are here, also welcome. And when you're sitting, you don't have to wear the mask, but it's on you if you want or not. But in the house, please wear them. And when you eat or drink, that's also not necessary. For the beginning, just to say how we planned it, there will be a narration. We will just go to Michal's studio, and we will have the possibility to have questions, and then it will be a presentation here. And also a welcome to our international visitors in the online stream meeting. Okay, then let's go to that studio.
So, dear Michal, you are now part of this residency program, Styrian Artist in Residence from Brunch. We was really glad that you came here from Bruno, Slowakei. And this is like, it was always here and there. Maybe you just want to say, well, how was this for you here in Graz? And how did you experiment this place? Just surrounding the culture. I don't know. I'm also about these installations.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me here. I can take it off. Thank you very much. I was actually supposed to do something completely different here. Something that has to do with value, but then I swapped to this project as as the deadlines are approaching. But it was also my to-do list, and which I call Monument of Post-Humanism, or When Attitudes Become Forms, Monument of Post-Humanism. It's not monument yet, and it's not very post-human, but it's I guess suggestion, or like I wanted to say speculation, but everybody's using it these days, so it doesn't really have much meaning. But I guess it is a speculation because it's not working. So it's a speculation for the future when the machines are self-aware or sentient, if they ever are, but I don't know. And I chose the printer as like a holder of this narrative, because the printers, statistically speaking, are mostly used for printing other printers. So its main thing that it does is it's replicating itself, like living organisms. Like it just tries to multiply it. So once it knows that what it's actually doing, because now people are telling it to print itself more and more and more. Once it knows, maybe it will probably continue to do so, even more. And I thought it might also want to celebrate itself and print itself like a monument that is for the machine only, and people are not really of interest. Is more of an obstacle, maybe. So ideally speaking, there would also be like a barrier where people would not be able to come too close to disturb the printer. But that's next thing on the list. Actually, until yesterday, it wasn't really printing. Now it is printing. Here are two specimen dinghies, benches. Oh yeah, here. You can see the mount.
Are they boats?
Incredible detail. Yes, these are boats. Both of them are both, as you can see on this one. And like before, this is the first print. Like this was a circle, for example, and then it's sort of collapsed. Let's see how its comprehension of geometry is improving drastically. And so it's becoming very slow. This was the first trial for the boat. So it kind of started like okay, but then it shifted elsewhere. So now it's quite good, and I think the hardest because this was all like just messing with technology that I don't fully understand. But now it's even harder because and then we were talking about this with Niki already. How can we or how can machine be asked to think for itself and create a model that it would print without a human intervening? So it's really post-human, and it's not me asking it to do something I want to do. So that I still don't know. If you guys have suggestions, please let me know. But yeah, I can maybe make a short demonstration. I wanted to print this squirrel, because also Andrea has a lot of these squirrels everywhere.
And there's
Yeah,
exhibition
this exhibition downstairs. So I freely scanned it. I haven't really put it in. It might work. I'll just try. So this is the program I used for controlling. Where is it? Yeah, maybe I just print. Now we have to wait. That's the thing with machine, you just have to wait.
So you're actually not really, it was not into these 3D printings and programming the whole life?
No, not the whole life. No, my whole life. I was born with the printer in my hand. No, actually.
That's the fluffy effect.
I need to check. No, this printer I built myself. And that's why it's also not working so well. But it's impossible to buy it, so there's no better way of doing it.
Why? Because it's so big, or
It's not a commercially available printer. It's it's a RepRap project, so the wrap it.
Yeah, it's not.
Something. And wait, I have to check if it's doing it, but it's too high.
Stay here now.
It's even higher, not the other way around. Is it doing something?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if something comes out.
The important move.
I guess it's fine.
It's printing a little bit in the air.
No, but maybe you have to look by yourself. There's something coming out, but I think it's maybe too cold. I don't know. But it's starting.
Something should be coming.
Yeah, there is something coming.
The thing is, so this doesn't have auto calibration, and
Is something wrong?
don't touch it.
Yeah, sorry. I need to push it lower.
I don't know which command is correct. So I'm sending it commands. This is like a low level communication.
Okay, but we understood.
So maybe in 2 hours when we come back, oh no, in 1 hour, we want to be around. It could be looking like something. It could also stop because of some error. Like this other printer there that can do everything perfectly, because I paid for it. And this one, not exactly. But I'm happy with it, like boats. Look like boats. So like I'm not really up to detail. I think with the larger scale, it won't really matter. And I actually like the texture. Like I'm not trying to pretend this is made out of bronze, like or it's casted or anything. So I think the layers are fine.
And you are programming or modeling these pieces?
And this I 3D scan. That's a 3D scan of this from Andreas Studio.
Oh, cool. So let's go and we could maybe wait in an hour or something.
Yeah, I hope it will still be here.
All right.
Okay, I'm just gonna look again.
Good. It's now a little bit dangerous to. I know it. But what is this? Michal?
That's Lama Su.
Persian.
Previous exhibition. Conditions. Volta conditions are now planetary. This is called. Yeah, this is on view in Bratislava. If you're in Bratislava. That actually is my first use of a 3D printer. So I don't count this one.
If you want to add something before we go out. It's actually quite fast and therefore
Really? I set it to go very slow. This slow. That's slow. But it's putting a lot of filament out. So the layer, because layer is high, it prints faster because with thinner nozzle you can make 10 layers while this one makes 1 layer. Okay. So that's why it makes it detail, but you can the steps are more rough.
and the material is just regular.
This is I don't know, it's PLA, so that's cornstarch mostly.
Okay.
That's corn.
Oh.
Only one thing, that's it. Something like that. This would actually biodegrade. Unfortunately, only in special like in certain conditions. Can be.
Okay, let's see what we also. You can just.
Yeah, this is everything.
So we could hear you better, right? Maybe let's go do it so the talk would be for more people here.
I wonder what happened with the. I didn't put any support there.
Do you have any questions, please?
Yes, later.
So let's see.
You want to make it? I can print the big one, the one that is downstairs, and then we have like have some showing
time for them. And now I will just, open this discussion or this artist talk today. And there will be some presentation also and about some other artistic works you did. The process probably you want to show us. You are free to do. I don't want to say anything no more, but later I will say something.
So, what should we do?
Yeah, great. I think generally these questions you ask with these projects are very important nowadays, especially if it comes to artificial consciousness, maybe. Ja, dann quietscht. Okay. When it comes to artificial consciousness and artificial creativity also, it's yesterday I read a little bit around it, and there's actually a Wikipedia entrance, and it seems, I didn't know about it, form of a subject of scientific research which is called artificial creativity. And I have my notes. They already found some kind of definition around what creativity, how creativity is defined, let's say. And I think it's kind of interesting, but also very strange, because I can read those 4 points. The answer is novel and useful, either for the individual or for society. Second, the answer demands that we reject ideas we had previously accepted. Third is the answer results from intense motivation and persistence. And fourth, the answer comes from clarifying a problem that was originally vague. So, yeah, sounds very interesting, but if we go to artistic creativity or like invention, or
It's similar, no?
I would say there's a lot of other aspects too which are important, especially kind of emotions or something. How do you see this?
I mean, from what you named, I don't think that makes it any special, no? Like, it's very basic.
Yes. Yes.
It's very simple. And I think with creativity, or with how I work, like, okay, this is so I'm building a machine, and there are certain procedures I have to follow in order for it to work, but actually I'm expecting it to, like that there will be a space of opportunity where this machine is not working as expected, and that's where the space for creativity actually occurs, for me at least, because I can't make it perfect anyway. So it's more interesting for me to subvert it somehow and see how it can malfunction and where I can push it, or in which direction I can push it. So solving a problem, it's more like maybe discovering a problem and then exploiting it. For me, sometimes it's about solving problems, but I don't know how many problems I solved with my artworks. But I have exploited problems, I believe. Yeah, it sounds also sounds very like engineer writing what a creativity for this machine should be, like someone focused on like reaching a particular result, or like a result-oriented process that brought, okay, this will be creative once it makes something, which, yes, but is it enough?
I see that also like this a little bit, because I think there's a lot of fields, especially in direction of artificial intelligence and inventions versus maybe innovation, what is more or less a little bit changing the meaning of what one thinks it is, like artificial intelligence, like as the copy of the human brain or something, because that is so far away, and I like also the idea how you think on the result of thinking and of the scientific process without that we even reached a first step in this direction. Because it is very important to think in these futuristic options, even most of them seem to be negative, where the machines take over the humans. Fortunately.
Yeah, but I mean, we might be faster than machines. Maybe we eliminate ourselves before the machines do. So let's see who wins this competition. But actually, I remembered, like there's this one particular model of AI training. It's just like no reinforcement, when it's just thrown into the water and then you say, okay, so swim, but I will not show you how. And then it tries and tries and tries and tries and tries. Like it has some obstacles that it needs to somehow cover or overdo. And then it actually comes up with surprising results or scenarios, because humans are not telling it, okay, you should maybe consider using your legs and this way and your hands that way. I mean, it's a model, so it doesn't have legs. But anyway, so when the human doesn't tell it what to do, and it just tries over and over and over, and eventually it comes up with some surprising possibilities. And I think that's where it's interesting. And that's also how I would love to see printed, something that I didn't impose on the machine, so that it can come up with something I would never think of, because I don't know how a monument of posthumanism should look anyway. Like, how do I know? But I mean, obviously, just the act of teaching it to do something is already a human input. So I don't think it can be completely like erased, and I guess it shouldn't be, because maybe it's more honest to acknowledge the amount of contribution, or like post-human doesn't mean without human, but maybe it means after human. So we can also use like a simple English. Yeah, but I'm still unsure how to help this kind of novel creativity that we would be surprised by. Not this like, oh, how would we want that the machine makes an AI filter that makes a Picasso image of myself? Like that's of course cool for Insta, but I don't know.
Maybe that example you proposed with or showed. Sorry, my English is very bad today.
No problem.
Shows the possibility, like when like putting that robot in the water to learn to swim, could be the same procedure on your machine. Actually, you don't have the software on it, but there is this kind of artificial intelligence who sees there is this kind of fluid existing hotness. Mm-hmm. Then again, there's the question: what is the question for the artificial? To build something as high as possible, as fast as possible. But there's so then. I think that would be interesting, as you said, because then there is not really a human like intention on the form, but it's maybe one could say it's very technologically approached, because either if you would say, let's make the maximum surface you can do with the body, which is, I mean, that would be quite easy. Maybe it's an interesting aesthetic. That has to be seen then.
I know that, for example, the Wi-Fi routers, the antennas, these have been like AI optimized or something, because this shape is kind of. So this is like, how do you get the most out of the least? So that's what AI is good at, or making like also in design, like how For example, I've seen the shelves, so like a normal shelf support would be right angle, and sometimes this 45 angle support, and the AI designed something that looks like almost like a tree, like very organic. And of course you cannot manufacture it, so you have to print it, or you need some advanced tools to make it. But if you have them, then you can use less material to have a stronger build. Or if you have this shape of antenna of Wi-Fi that is not very common and it's not easy to manufacture, then you will have a better like signal projection. But so like it's kind of like it's expecting that we can implement these advanced solutions somehow. Like it's also demanding of us to like maybe it creates some super funky shape that that is hard to print, and then it can't print because it needs support. So like this squirrel, I'm printing without supports. So at some point it will print in the air, which of course physics don't really allow, but it can like stick a little bit to the surface that is. If it prints over 45 degrees, usually it collapses, but not always. It depends how good you calibrate it. So this is not very well calibrated, but I didn't want to use support to see how it performs. Like if it maybe destroys this squirrel, and when we come back, it's just gonna be like something like the first print looked like. To show. Sure. Okay. Not so philosophical? Are we too philosophical? Yeah, I mean, so maybe the reason why I'm interested in this is I'm generally interested in future making, I guess, if I can say that, or like imagining possible future scenarios. So like how the world may look like if this or if that, or how can we bring this kind of dynamics about. So I think that's one thing I believe artists can do to contribute, I guess, to current like political and social processes. So like I'm not really suggesting solutions, or I don't even know of them, but I can use my artistic status to basically not do proper research, but make very bold statements. So like I can make a shortcut which other professionals maybe cannot, like engineers or scientists, or even in social sciences you need like statistical research, and I can just say, well, I read this article, so that means this and that, and look at this, and it's impactful, or I hope it is impactful, and I'm not saying that the base of my research is very solid, but I think the statement can be solid, or it can be suggestive, and then it can start it can just start curiosity, or spread some interest, or even emotion. I think is important, even if people, like the audience, doesn't fully understand what's going on, or doesn't even have an possibility to understand, because I'm not going to be having art talk every day of the exhibition. So somebody comes, the gallery is empty, the custodian doesn't know anything, and so there is no way to like rationalize what you're looking at or what you're experiencing. But you can carry away like a seed of something that can then grow into, like, very indirectly and very immeasurably. So that's why it's hard to get funding to something that eventually translates into reality, that translates into this process of making the future. So this is one of, I don't know, countless scenarios. I guess in this other work that you've seen traits of, Volta, I don't know, should I read the whole concept? Well, it's a connection between Voltaren. I don't know how popular Voltaren is in Austria. It is a medicine that is used for if you have pain in the knees or if you have some inflammation. It's basically diclofenac. Diclofenac is the effective chemical, and there is this interesting connection between diclofenac or Voltaren and the Zoroastrian minority that lives in Mumbai in India, and they're very private rights. So and my point is that the amount of interconnections of various seemingly unrelated phenomena is so high at the moment, and I think will become even higher in the future, that it's not that we should adapt, or it's good to think outside of one's immediate surroundings, to spread the consciousness beyond what's in my direct reach, or it's one person's direct reach, or like a personal identity, or then national identity even, or some. This, of course, these things don't dissolve, they don't disappear, but I think we all are now part of a larger global system that is very rhizomatic and is also often outside of our reach. So these are the hyper object. Who said that? Hyper object. There's this term that Timothy Morton, I think, which describes something like an entity that has its own agency and has impact on reality, but it's beyond human comprehension. And so, for example, global warming is a hyper object. We cannot touch it, we cannot perceive it with our bodies, but it exists and it impacts reality, and it's sort of beyond our control. So I think there's a lot of hyper objects that operate on a global scale today, and they might be initiated by human, but I think a lot of them took on their own life, and it's they're beyond our control. So even here, I don't think this pharmaceutical company wanted to. So they basically, Voltaren kills the vultures that would eat the dead bodies of Zoroastrians to get on the other side, because that's how they used to basically, and not, of course, when they're already dead when they're being eaten, but that's how they finish their physical existence in this world. And now they're forced to change it because the vultures are almost gone, because Voltaren is administered to cattle, because of mass farming, and the conditions are not very good. So there's a lot of health problems with animals. So they serve this as a symptomatic treatment. It doesn't erase the problem, but it offers some relief, and it's cheap. And because cows in India are sacred, the locals don't eat them. So if a cow dies, a vulture would eat it, or a dog. And to a dog, it doesn't do anything, but to vulture, this is lethal. So I think the population in the last 30 years decreased by 98 or 99%. They're basically almost extinct. So previously, it would take half an hour to eat dead Zoroastrian. Now it can take 6 months. But by the time, of course, it's rotten. So it's not very convenient. And this really a bizarre connection between, and also the Zoroastrians are not, they used to live in today's Iran, or in Persia, and then moved to India with with the spread of Islam. Some of them converted, some of them stayed, and some left to India. And they maintained their identity up till today, but it is now somehow being changed. So I'm suggesting, like in this work, I'm creating this sort of like a future mythology of contemporary Zoroastrianism, which of course 3D printed, obviously, where I try to portray this Voltaren sign. I don't know if I have a good picture of it. Here, can you see it? This man who can move very well because it has no pain. It knows no pain. And this is like it's like a 3D printed relief with like images from here from like I wanted to use this kind of like archaic format, like a relief, but it's 3D printed, and when it's backlit, it actually becomes the details like magically occur because it's printed in a way that where the layer is higher, the less light comes through, as where it's lower, the more. So it creates this kind of like black and white image effect. And when it's off, here are the lights. When it's off, you don't really see that much detail. And so there are like two modes in this show. One is like okay, this is like a gallery piece where everything is perfectly white and you appreciate couture haute. And then the lights turn off and this turns on, and also has like these lasers that supposedly create a volta pentagram. And I wanted to have like a smell there as well, but it couldn't manage. But at least I have a smoke. So, no, the smell of, because, and that's another ironic thing. So fire is a sacred element for Zoroastrians, and this anti-inflammatory drug is basically putting down their sacred fire. But during the I mean, I'm not an expert here again, but from what I've learned, during the rites, they burn some incense, like they have fire going all the time, and they use basically something similar to what you would have in church. So it's sandalwood, mirha, I don't know what that. Myrrh, and something else. There's a third thing too. But that's that. So like to create some like an immersive environment that appeals more to emotional side than a rational, because this is it has a rational behind it, but in the end it's. I think appealing on emotion is more effective. As we're talking with Elke about this as well, like why people tend to like all sorts of disinformational campaigns, and I think it's not really about where the truth is, but what works for people or what resonates with them. So by creating like a suggestive atmosphere, I think more can be put across than by writing an essay or having a very proper argument, because that's not really how the information processing works. Or it's one way, which like is very academic, and if you're an academician or you're intellectual or anyway, you have a capacity to an interest to learn something very factual, you can. But if not, then it's just not going to work. So I think also like I try to approach art making as like a narrative tool that has extended options compared to text or just the spoken word. So I'm trying to create like these environments that kind of suck you in. That's a question how successful that is, but that's my goal at least.
You want to show us more, or Niki, do you want to jump in? Or maybe put some also fader on machines. Do you have also lots of experience in that area?
think the biggest connection can be seen with the 3D printing, actually. I like 3D printing also very much. I see it's a very interesting system, which is, I think, one of the only thing which is quite cheap and possible and open accessible, in contrary like to a inkjet printer. And you can create something from the virtual world to the real world, transfer something like really from this virtual world, which nowadays isn't anymore two-dimensional. And I think this is a very interesting process, which we had in the other direction. We will see the cloning via the 3D scanning of the squirrel of Andrea, which might be half finished already. And one could see there, I have destroyed, yes. One could see there also creativity over these kind of mistakes. Maybe Kevin talked at the moment, because the 3D scanning device is not perfect, or maybe you wanted it to scan in a way that there is kind of misinterpretations of the device, and in the other way your device is not acting like perfectly accurate. So there might be coming out at least another interpretation of the object, and yeah, in different ways. This I like. That's why I like mistakes or failure. I don't know. I think generally in this concern we have a wrong culture on failure and mistakes, because in my personal impression, everything what is like new ideas, evolution, change and process is, I think, based on mistakes. Maybe mistakes in understanding, mistakes in interpreting something. I think even language, especially if it's not mother language, is very easy to misunderstand in a conversation. But what does it mean? Misunderstanding is that, in fact, a new idea has evolved out of nothing, out of the misunderstanding, out of the mistake, out of the failure. So, yeah, this for me it's the one of the core elements of humanity, because we can learn of mistakes which have a negative effect on us. Maybe we can, and we can evolve through mistakes which lead in other directions. If we look at the moment, even global warming and all the problems we have now, a lot of technical achievements like the now hated gas and petrol were once those who made the air free and nice from the coal burning. So there's this constant evolvement, and change means also into good and evil. Again, in the moment, we have a kind of fear of technology and artificial intelligence. There is always this kind of horror, science fiction movies everywhere. Maybe it's because artificial intelligence, which got consciousness, has as a system embedded already the one thing we never be able to achieve, that not to die. And that's maybe we envy it before it even was possible to create.
So the AI is immortal.
Yeah, sure.
But once you unplug it, it's dead.
It can copy, replicate everything, no problem.
It's everywhere.
We cannot copy
ourselves.
But
I heard that Elon Musk wants to...
It's big projects for sure which exist.
Copy us.
It's very important. I think just read that the human being were just able to survive because they're copying everything. If this possibility of not copying would not there, so human will like being mushrooms today, or like they wouldn't develop themselves. So maybe Niki, do you want to show us on some of your pieces? That will be nice, probably, for some of our audience that doesn't know you.
I can use the browser. I didn't watch the doing.
Oh yeah, here, but wait, maybe let's share the screen first. Go to Zoom. Share screen.
Oh yeah.
Did we share it? Share it. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So now you are in a.
Yeah, generally, I hope I'm doing it right. I'm working with robots, creating robotic tools. I come from music, classical music. With like 5 years, I started playing violoncello and studying at 11 in Graz already, and finished then with 17. And yeah, and since then already I realized that it's possible that, and it's a tradition which exists since a very long time, to enhance like artistically the human yourself with technical instruments like music instruments to create things what you couldn't create before. The same is actually as a painter. You use a brush, which is a quite complicated technical instrument, and there is always just a difference between technology before computer and after computer. Or let's go farther, before Industrial Revolution and after Industrial Revolution. And I think it's because there was a shift in how machines are made. Because a music instrument, if you play it, you don't get lost as a human behind, but the person who uses this machine, if you want, is in the focus of the art produced. And if you look, it seems that the pianoforte was the last instrument, I think, during Industrial Revolution, which was invented, or let's say optimized another instrument, which went to this canon of music instruments for composers. There maybe are new other ideas of instruments, but they are not in this kind of field. And I think this has to do because the intention of creating machines changed, because what Charlie Chaplin already showed in Modern Times in his movie very well, where the human is only, let's say, the organic prosthesis on the machine body, the industrial body of the factory. And coming back to the 3D printer, this suddenly breaks through this fabrication only in this kind of industrial way, but to privatize also again technic production, because if you would look on these platforms like Thingiverse, there is even inventions of systems which work only with the 3D printer, like springs or certain things which are designed for 3D printing at home. Because if you look at 3D printing, the story is very interesting, because I think when my researches are right, it's like in the 80s there was a Japanese company who invented that and had a patent running on it, but for industry it's not a meaningful process because you make one thing at once and not like a million things. The better system which took over this idea was Spritzguss, if I am allowed to use the German term, where you can make hundreds of same at the same time. And so that company finished to pay patent rights, so it suddenly was not you could work with these ideas without having to pay license money to this company. And this was the moment where the DIY world started to play around with this concept. And the interesting thing is that it was stopped because it has no commercial value. Nobody could see a commercial value because industry is building a factory and producing things. And now what 3D printing is, that the production system is coming to this individuum. I think 99% of all 3D printers are yet fashion objects because it's very cheap. A lot of people buy it, print some Yoda figures out, and had this experience, which is very important. If you buy a mobile phone for 700 or a 3D printer for 300 euro, and then the problem comes that you need something what you want to do with it, because then you have, but you're always in this moment of what do I do with this empty virtual space which has to be filled. So this, and what I do, just for short, you see it here, sometimes I build little machines which have pens on it or brushes, and then I interact with them, and there is different. Yeah, I made also tattoo machines like this, which is actually a 3D printer, a converted 3D printer. This tattoo. Yes. Yeah, it was one of these reps. Also my first 3D printer. It became this. It's at the moment in the Künstlerhaus in Vienna. There's exhibition where this is also shown.
And did you know? Did you know what it's going to print?
Yeah, the idea was a spirograph, but if you know this kind of mandala things, but if you look closer, the machine, you see, maybe, where is it? No. You maybe see that it's just pieces of wood and with cable metal strings put together in the way as that it just works. It's very complicated, in fact, to create mistakes without and having this system still work.
So this didn't make any mistakes?
Yeah, unfortunately, this one was. For me, it's very interesting. You learn so much about yourself with all these machine things and all about humanity and about thinking processes and everything. And I realized, working with motors, that how strong the human is generally, how much forces, and also by seeing and how much you can hold out. That's quite a lot. So if you touch like this, nothing. It's just maybe some sensoric input, which is for a machine, or normally it's broken. And I thought that the tension of the skin is stronger, so the needle was going quite deep inside. But when you start, and what for me is very important is this moment. There's no, for me, there's no possibility to test it before, because one time so you put your arm under it and then you start play, and it's good if some color comes out and some traces are left at the beginning during that process. Because that is also a very interesting thing with machines, and we are here also in this failure 4.0, that if you are creating something which should move and doesn't move, then the disappointment is extremely high. Not from yourself, but from the people who expect movement. Maybe you experienced that too.
Yeah.
How much time do we have still? Do you want to come to an end or the last?
Maybe you see that at least if you work with machines, that's also John Tanguy already said, it's a very humorous practice. It can be serious, but
Also
without
frustrating.
humor you can't succeed.
Are there those machines that terminate themselves? Or some example for this? I mean, you give control back to, I mean, as an artist, you both start something, an idea and the vision, and use those mechanical or those machines, those ways to do your idea, but in one moment you just are not the maker anymore. It's just like has his own dynamic and his own life, and maybe it's like a child who playing around and you're just watching, and you will love it anyway.
Yeah, I think if it gets this far, then that's already very satisfying. If it gets to a point where I'm just watching it.
Does it end that?
It gets there sometimes, yeah, with some projects, yeah, definitely. Here I think I still, there's a lot of testing ahead of me before I can give it freedom, so to speak.
Maybe one last thing. You have also already now a few other exhibitions, you too, but the focus are today on Michal. Maybe you can just show us this project that's still running for the audience and for the visitors, so we could have some Vorgeschmack.
Vorgeschmack. Was ist das?
Taster.
Taste.
Pre-taste.
Oh.
Well, maybe the one that sort of resonates with this one. Maybe I can play a short video.
Yeah. What
Is it possible?
Sound marking?
No video, no sound. Yeah. So this is called Edge of Chaos, and that maybe has like a. Yeah, no, well, not exactly similar. I mean, it also starts with this notion of rhizome, like of interconnected system of various nodes that communicate together and act as a whole, but it's not clear which node does what and what information come in and come out. It's like this complex organic system that spreads out. So like roots of mushrooms work this way. That's they create these rhizomatic structures, and the mushrooms we see on top of the ground are just like a small portion of what the actual body of mushroom is, which it lives mostly underground and spreads way further than where it grows. And there's this hypothesis that the system at the verge of collapse, or at the point where it's extremely disorganized, is also the moment when it is most creative. So when the most new ways of being or scenarios for surviving can come through. And that point is called Edge of Chaos. And a feedback, like audio feedback or any feedback system, is supposedly like a good appropriation of such a system. So I used like audio feedback and also that feeds to light to create like a system that works on its own and creates its own dynamics without like I started it, I initiated it with in a program, but then it took on its own life. And eventually it loops somehow because there are like modifiers that work in a circular fashion. So after, I don't know, several, maybe 8 minutes, it's like similar patterns come out. But it's always changing slightly because the microphones are taking stimulus from the space. So it also depends on the architecture of the space, the size and the acoustic properties, but also on people who interact with it. But the thing is, like, people can interact with it, but they can't change it much. So like you can, I think in a context of the system as a whole, like one person is a small player. But then at the it was shown twice. Here you won't see it, but this at the other opening, I invited people to like play with it because I also the point is it's a immersive environment that you can with this particular one you can even interact. So to try if you can influence it or how you can influence it or what does it do to you, and then so many people started to play with it that they changed the system to something else. So when many people, so that's also like this. Positive utopian statement that if many people join the forces, they can override the system. But once they stop, the system got back to its previous state because it's programmed to follow certain patterns. It's also listening to other stimulations, but when there is no stimulation, it gets back to what it was before. So I'll just show you like a short, yeah?
Dźwięku do miasta ogrodów Katowice. Budowałem te instalacje tutaj na Akademii za pomocą właśnie techniką z warsztatu drewnianego. No i robi tu sztukę takiego dźwięku albo audiowizualnej. Nazywa się to Edge of Chaos. Budowaliśmy to z niczego. Ja przyjadłem z samochodem pełnym starych głośników. Chciałem wyjadrić jakąś metaforu współczesnego momentu. Chodzi o to, że ciężko pochopić jakieś linearne causality w tym właśnie w momencie, w którym żyjemy, że coś się gdzieś udaje, ale výsledok jakiś jest, ale nie wiadomo kiedy i gdzie i w jakiej szkale i w jakim pomiaru. No i właśnie ta instalacja, tam chodzi o feedback najwięcej, czyli odezwu. Tam się to właśnie wytworzy jakiś własny system, który działa już bez pomocy człowieka. Czyli zapoczęło to jakimś konaniem człowieka, ale nie wiadomo, czy w końcu to będzie tak, jakby chciał. Ale ten system dalej funkcjonuje na zakładzie jakichś swoich prawideł, które właśnie ani ja nie znam. Chciałem, żeby mnie to zawsze zaskoczyło.
Projekt jest realizowany w ramach działalności Biura Dźwięku Katowice, ale jednocześnie jakby jest wspierany przez Akademię Sztuk Pięknych, która jest partnerem tego projektu. Michał do nas napisał, czy byłaby możliwość zrealizowania rezydencji i zaprosiliśmy go, aczkolwiek to się tak odwlekało w czasie, że finalnie przyjechał dopiero w momencie, kiedy już była pandemia i stąd też ten długi czas realizacji, ponieważ to już trwa mniej więcej 4 miesiące. Całość działań gdzieś tam oscyluje pomiędzy właśnie biurem, gdzie była ta bardziej strona konceptualna i techniczna, powiedzmy techniczna, a tutaj już na uczelni, korzystając z przestrzeni modelarni, udało się zrealizować te konstrukcyjne bardziej obiekty. Myślę, że uda się tutaj to przytrzymać do końca tygodnia, a następnie przeniesiemy to do biura dźwięku, do naszej siedziby, gdzie no, podejrzewam, że będzie można co najmniej przez miesiąc oglądać tą wystawę. Myślę, że to jest rodzaj takiego organizmu, który sam się napędza, czyli on zbiera, powiedzmy, dźwięki z tej przestrzeni i jeżeli stają się głośniejsze, to on je bardziej przetwarza i napędza inne głośniki i jakby to działa trochę taki jak perpetuum mobile może dźwiękowe, że to jakby cała idea to jest właśnie to sprzężenie zwrotne. Rodzaj po prostu takiego dźwiękowego i świetlnego organizmu.
Good, I think we're coming slowly to the end. I just open for questions, feedback, whatever.
Oops. I have a question for both of you, I guess. What kind of role do emotions, feelings, bondings play in your work when you create these machines and robots? Do you have, so you spend a lot of time with them? Do you create some kind of really strong feelings? And because I was thinking before when you, one of you told the anecdote of throwing this machine into the water so that it can learn to swim. I thought it's very brutal, but also humans do it with children, I think, sometimes. So I don't know, what are your, do you start to have feelings for your machines, and when you destroy them or have to rebuild them, yeah, how do you feel about that?
I don't think I create a lot of attachment to them. Like I do in terms of that I want them to serve me in the future, but not as like any romantic or maybe friendly, yeah, but it's usually just a lot of frustration and anger when it doesn't work, and it's like, why do I not do like ceramics or painting or something that I can directly influence? I know, but because also my understanding of the machine is limited. So, and the machine requires very particular way of communicating with it. Like, for example, if we talk as humans and I raise my voice or I omit a comma somewhere or I make a shortcut, you understand still what I want to say. But if I forget a semicolon in a code, it will say, I don't want to talk to you. I don't understand what you're saying. You need to fix it and then I can talk to you. So you have to, like, it's very radical when it comes to how it wants to be treated. Like, there's one correct way. at least with code, or maybe with the code with the C#, with the or it's not C#, with Arduino that I mostly code, because other coding languages I don't know. So there's probably some more liberal ones. Or even with visual coding, you still have to connect the nodes in particular order and give it this thing it likes, because if it don't likes, it will give you an error. So yeah, and it's a trial error also a lot of times, which it shouldn't be if I was more informed or educated, but I'm not. So I think with technology comes a lot of frustration, really, like especially if you want to go under the surface, because you have a user interface which is made for people to be simple and intuitive and even like aesthetically pleasing. But then what if I want to do something that is not offered in the user interface? Well, you dig underneath and it's just a huge, for me, a mess, maybe for a programmer not, of like thousands of lines of code, and like, what do I do here? Why did I even start? Maybe I look at the forum, somebody might know, or they don't.
But aren't we all afraid a little bit also from that point of no return? Because you said just now the machine won't talk with you at all. I remember the scene from Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick, where this robot called HAL 9000 just said, no, I won't do that. You know, I'm just like, you have no control about them anymore.
Well, you do have control, but you have to play by their rules.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the rules that some human made before you. But I have to follow them. So it's quite rigid in a way. I also like to get like a creative organic output. There's just a lot of ones and zeros, like if this, then this, if this, then this, if this, then this, and you make like a nested if then clause that creates an impression of organicity, but it's just like yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, and you like I have to shift the thinking from like how I would intuitively do it to how this machine needs to be told what it does, so then I am then it is to my liking. This is like different modes of operation completely, and like I like my computer, for example. It's serving me well for 9 years, and it's still working, so it's great.
It's like a pet, or
it is a pet. I carry it everywhere I go.
Look, it's already did something.
Ah, yeah, it stopped.
The legs.
But it stopped.
It's very slow because of that we can't see it.
No, I think it stopped.
It's moving on the phrase. Yeah, we saw it move before. It just moved. You looked at it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's temperature problems. It needs certain temperature. It needs 215 degrees, and when it goes to 214, it stops.
And they need a break.
It's up. Yeah, but it's useless because it can also do 214. But I wasn't able to maybe know how to configure this. So there's a larger frame for.
So I think this is the point that we get really.
Do you want to react?
You want to add something, Niki? Or dear audience, do you want to add or remove? And also, I see one member is on our Zoom meeting. Maybe you can put something in the chat, or. All right. Then, if you agree, we could just finish this part and we go then just into our art brunch, and we could also hang around here more. Yeah. And thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm just now switching, and also thank you for this technical support. Martin Pobica, danke. Stefan Lothar for the camera. I just switch to German because it's then I have to pronounce some of our programs. Wir haben momentan eine Ausstellung im Haus von der Künstlerin Andrea Sadiak. Hallo, die Sonne geht bald unter und die endet jetzt am 24. April mit einem Art Brunch auch, also ähnlich wie heute, mit von der steirischen Demenz Hilfe, die Frau Claudia Knopper, also Kunst und Demenz ist das Thema. Eine andere Ausstellung öffnet am 22. Hier oben die Reihe Oberdeck im Gang von dem Künstler Franz Konrad. Das große Wiesenstück, was sich mit der Umgebung hier beschäftigt. Dann haben wir einen Call, also das Plakat am Fenster und es gibt auch Flyer dazu. Dieser muss ich gleich Werbung machen für die Kamera, für euch. Und heute Abend gibt es noch ein Konzert, Overdrive and Dreams um 8 Uhr. Also unbedingt, wenn ihr wollt, könnt ihr gerne bleiben oder wieder zurückkommen. Werbung für andere. Im Namen der künstlerischen Leitung Elke Muller-Sitz bedanke ich mich auch von dem Koordinationsteam. Ich glaube, das ist genug gesagt. Aber wenn ich was vergessen habe. Ja, das Buffet ist auch, hoffentlich scheitert das nicht. Danke vielmals.